Congresswoman Liz Cheney has a family history of conservative politics, but she is once again bravely putting her country over party by calling out you-know-who as unfit, and she's crossing the aisle to campaign with Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. Please, please welcome this extraordinary woman, Liz Cheney.
I think I echo everyone. We owe you such a debt. Well done, and thank you.
No, listen, it's so important. And as you guys know, and as you've talked about, there are so many Republicans who are crossing the aisle. I mean, there is just this unprecedented coalition that's coming together behind Vice President Harris, because it's not about partisan politics. No. It's about the future of our country.
Well, since vice chairing the House Select Committee investigating the attack on the Capitol and your endorsement of the vice president, Trump's attacks against you have been unrelenting. He's called you to be jailed for treason. He's called you a Muslim-hating warmonger. And then by far, in my view, the most serious direct threat against you. We have a clip of it.
She's a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it. You know, when the guns are trained on her face.
Now, Trump's campaign said he was criticizing your willingness to start wars and send American troops into combat without having seen combat. But now he's doubled down on his rhetoric, calling you a war hawk who wants to kill people unnecessarily and calling you a disgrace. What is your reaction to the clip we saw?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, he's said this nonsense about sort of, you know, war hawk before. But what he did a couple of days ago, he's never done before. Taking the step of saying, you know, 9 rifles shooting her in the face. And he knows what he's doing. Yeah. He knows it's a threat. It's an attempt to intimidate. Yeah. Obviously, the intimidation won't work. But what he's doing, frankly, is every day when I'm out there, I'm talking about his lack of fitness and especially making sure people remember what he did while he watched television as our Capitol was attacked. For over 3 hours, he watched police officers be brutally beaten. He was told the vice president had been evacuated. He said, so what? People were rushing in, pleading with him, tell the mob to leave, and he wouldn't. And that level of depravity, he knows he has no defense to that. And he knows that the American people will not entrust again with power anyone who would do something that cruel. And so because he can't respond to that, he tries to change the subject, he tries to threaten. And it's what autocrats do.
That's right.
To try to get their political adversaries to be silent.
Well, Liz, you threw your support behind Vice President Harris in September, and you not only endorsed her, you, for the first time ever, voted for a Democrat. So I want to ask you how that feels, but I also want to ask, was any part of that this idea of reclaiming the actual conservative values of the party? Because I always say, to get the Republican Party back, they have to get it out of Trump's hands.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, first of all, there is only one serious, responsible adult in this race. There's just one. And it's not a race where we have the luxury of being able, you know, sometimes conservatives will say, well, I'm going to write in an alternative. I'm not going to vote for Trump, but I'm going to write somebody in. And I want to make sure people all across the country understand you don't have that luxury. We have to defeat him. And I can't tell you how proud I was to fill in that, circle next to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I mean, it really. Can you though talk us through your thought process? Because I remember when we did a book event for your book in Miami, I asked you if you were going to endorse Kamala Harris, or maybe it was Biden back then. I can't even remember, and you weren't ready to. But something happened, right? Something happened where you did become ready. And I'm wondering if you can talk us through that thought process for Republicans or independents, right-leaning independents, who might be looking at that ballot and just having a really hard time bubbling in Kamala Harris. Do you feel that voting for Kamala Harris means abandoning being a Republican? I mean, talk us through the process. Look, the most conservative principle for conservatives, for anybody, is being faithful to the Constitution.
That's right.
And in this race, Donald Trump is certainly not a conservative. Donald Trump is advocating policies like this massive tariff structure that he's proposing that will raise everybody's taxes, that will drive inflation up, that will drive the debt. I mean, he's not conservative. For me, it came down to two things. One, realizing we have to make sure we defeat him. And it's not an academic exercise of saying, I wish this ideal person were running, so I'm going to write that person's name in. But I also have had the chance to spend time with Vice President Harris and to get to talk to her, to get to know and understand her sincerity about being a president for all of us, and her sincerity about being a faithful public servant. Somebody who is going to operate in good faith, and somebody who's the kind of person that will be able to lead and to inspire millions of Americans, and especially our little girls. And I think that's so important.
Don't you think Republicans need to know that if you vote this time for Kamala, that doesn't mean you're going to vote for Democrats the rest of your life? And that doesn't mean you lose your ability to criticize Kamala if she becomes president.
No, absolutely.
If you disagree on policy.
For sure. And I think the Republican Party, once we get through November, there is going to be a lot of changes that are going to need to be made. But you're right. Yeah.
Well, Liz, I want to ask you, and you and I have talked about this a lot, to be in this moment required a lot of Republican enablers. We think of people like Kevin McCarthy, Mike Johnson, Mitch McConnell, who've heard the same words that we've all heard. They've seen the same actions by Donald Trump, yet continue to make excuses. And after the comment against you this weekend, he talked about basically the press being shot at. Every day there seems to be something more depraved than before. Why do these people still defend him, and why do they have such a hard time taking his words seriously despite everything we've seen?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, and I think that he wouldn't be successful if he didn't have these enablers, if he didn't have people who tried to sort of to sane wash the things that he's saying. And I think that it has really taught us a lot about some of the people that we've elected. It's taught us a lot about cowardice. And look, I think that if you look at so many of the people who stood up, it has been young women, and it's been brave and courageous women and men, but people who've been willing to say, wait a minute, I am not going to go down that path of defending him. And I also think history is going to look back at all of this, and the people that have gone along, the people who have supported, what he's saying every day and what they know he will do, they'll have to explain that to themselves and their kids and grandkids.
Their dishonor will remain, as you said.
Yeah. Well, it's incredible because, if someone had said something to him like what he said to you, he'd be crying. Look at how they're treating me. They're so mean to me. I'm gonna get them. See, he can't take it.
Yeah.
And that is the lack of is not a surprise.
Definition of a bully.